just keep it inside. Learn how to hide your feelings.
3, 2, 1.
There we go.
0.
Can you hear the ambulance now?
And we're off.
Hey, you. Yeah, you.
What?
Come here for a minute. I want to talk to you.
What's the mama say?
Mama says your brain dead. Bang your head against the wall.
Bang, 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 bang.
Can't find peace of mind. Brain needs an overhaul.
Not to be confused with Bang Energy Drink.
That's right.
We're all the same. You can't think straight.
When your heart is in pain, turn around, hit the ground. Time to lay your burden down. Come on,
The
Marcia.
views expressed on this broadcast of the Take 12 Recovery Radio Show are those of the co-host and guest and do not necessarily reflect those of our affiliates.
Thank goodness.
The topics and opinions on today's show should not be considered as medical,
That's right.
psychological, or professional advice. Take 12 Radio is not affiliated with any particular 12-step fellowship.
None
and
of them
now,
guys.
here's your host,
The man, the myth, the legend.
the Monty Man.
All right.
I'm telling you the truth, man.
And I ain't gonna lie to you. Everybody sing.
Good guys,
Bad boys, we're all the same. Saved by grace is the name of the game. Turn around, hit the ground. Time to lay your burden down. All right, we've had a really weird morning. The listeners don't know this, but we were doing the wrong templates. I produced the wrong intro for today's show. It's been an upside down day, Dave, and it's not even noon yet.
Well,
Wow. Well, Dave Fleming is in the studio because today is actually not the Great Reality Show, the Take 12 Recovery production of the Great Reality Show that we usually do on the first and second Monday of the month, but entitled to Overcome Solutions for Life Today with Dave Fleming. So next week we'll have the proper intro for it, but that's okay. We record all these in the same studio, and it's all produced by Take 12 Recovery Radio and KHLT Recovery Broadcasting in beautiful downtown Albany, Oregon, or at least on the outskirts.
you remembered this time.
Do you know that there's a pharmaceutical manufacturer right down at the end of the street down here? And I'm not talking about the local drug cook. I'm talking about
I thought that looked like a meth house.
no Grace Pharmaceuticals right back here.
Okay.
So I live
What
right down
kinda-
the street from the jail, and right down the street from a pharmaceutical manufacturer.
What do they manufacture?
Pharmaceuticals?
What kind?
I don't know. We should go ask them.
Supplements?
All right. Melissa Manchester was the one singing that song, a little ditty, Don't Cry Out Loud, at the beginning of the show. A little sound bite, because the topic for this week is Big Boys Do Cry. Now, we've heard about emotional sobriety and emotional dependency. And this week, we're going to talk about emotional recovery. Dave? Yes, we are.
Okay.
Oh, my goodness sakes. How you doing?
I'm doing okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
as a famous other personality would say, is better than I deserve.
better than you deserve. Yeah. I agree with that. There we go. Okay. Well, I've got some things to talk about this morning. I hope. Oh.
Uh-oh.
Stop right there, everybody.
Okay.
Because it's time for the Monty Man's Weekly Wine.
Oh, boy.
Oh,
All
boy.
you do is whine. All you do is whine. All you do is whine. Whine. Whining is all you do.
Yeah. It is time for my weekly
Sounds
wine.
familiar.
Yes. By the way, speaking of
I miss your whining.
You miss my whining?
I miss listening to you whine every day.
Do you? Well, you're going to get every day I do a little bit. You're going to get to hear a couple of really choice whines this week. Speaking of the Beatles, I think I mentioned this last week. I'm still thinking about the great movie that we went and saw called Yesterday. Really, really good movie. So that's all I'll say about that. Go see the movie. All right. So the weekly whine this week. Where do I start? So Marsha and I went to Big Lots the other day to buy 2 mattresses for the 2 guest beds upstairs now that all the kids have moved out and got married. And they were on sale. We got a really good price on them. And so we pull up to Big Lots, and there is a food truck, not associated with Big Lots at all, right next door. Nice. And there is the I guess you would call them the cooks or the servers of the food truck sitting out in front of the food truck with this huge speaker, right? And they're blaring really horrible, crude hip-hop music that is talking about having illicit sex with African-American women in the gutter.
What?
And the thing that was interesting about it was the guys that owned the food truck, or at least were managing it, they themselves were African-American. And I can't even say the words that were coming out of the speaker. It was so foul and so offensive. And I thought, wow, that's a great way to make friends and influence people and get people to come to your Caribbean. Do you say Caribbean or Caribbean?
It depends on what the context is.
Okay, well, it's the Caribbean barbecue truck is what it was called. And if you guys are listening, the owners of that, you need to know that the people running your food truck are not doing you any favors. I mean, people were walking into Big Lots with their kids and stuff, you know.
Was it just set up in the parking lot?
Yeah, it was set up right next on the side of Big Lots. The food truck was in the parking lot next to the building, you know, and Big Lots, the manager was kind of poking his head out, shaking his head, thinking, you know, like, what the heck is this?
Who gave him permission to do that?
Who knows?
Yeah, my first call would be to the Popo.
Man, give me a break.
Say, where's your permit?
Jeez. Okay, so there's that one. I got another one. We're in the line. We're buying the wood slats for the beds because they're old bunk beds separated for these beds. And I'm at Home Depot. And there's a guy, we got all this wood, and there's a guy with 1 gallon of paint in front of us. And the register operator says, do you have your Home Depot card? He goes, oh, I forgot it. It's out in my truck. I'll be right back. So as he's walking out to his truck, I notice he's not hurrying. He's just kind of sauntering. And I look at the register operator and I go, he's not coming back, dude. Because he's not even making haste to his car at all. He's just not coming back. And I go, well, I'll wait. And I'll say, okay, I'm fine. I'm not going anywhere. So we waited and we waited. And
why would they make you wait? That's just, I don't even think that's protocol.
And then I saw him drive off in his truck. and then the guy goes, all right. So then he put the thing aside and he voided it out and all that stuff. But I thought, you don't do that, right? You put it aside and you come back to it.
Right.
But we waited.
Every other
and we
cashier.
Waited. So that wasn't nearly as bad. But here's the kicker. This is my wine. Straws.
Where did it kick you?
Straws, man. So we were at an Italian restaurant yesterday afternoon. And the waitress came up to it. It was our life group. Yeah. Our church's life group. So there's about 15 of us, right?
I saw the picture.
And she's rolling her eyes because she's about ready to tell us something that she thinks is ridiculous too.
Right.
She goes, I just need to let you know that if you want straws, you have to request them. And this is not me offering them to you, because if I offer you a straw with your soda, I can be fined $25 per straw. It is a new state law in the state of Oregon. if you're at a full-service restaurant, the restaurant and the server can be fined for offering to give you a straw, or if they just include the straw with the drink. You have to specifically request it.
You know, the interesting thing is I don't know if I've ever been given a straw automatically or even been asked if I liked a straw. We've always had to ask for them.
I've never been given one except for like fast food, like through the drive-thru or something.
Right, and I didn't know that went into effect yet because I know somebody that is a manager at McDonald's, and I asked him. I said, "So what's up with this straw?" I said, have the straw police come by your business yet? And he's like, "What are you talking about?"
Well, it's not effective. It's only at full-service restaurants right now. At this point. And this isn't like they're giving you paper straws or anything. This is just you have to personally request the straw. And so I looked at her and I said, so it's perfectly legal to be walking around stoned out of your mind in public, but it's illegal for you to offer me a plastic straw with my soda. And she just rolled her eyes and was cracking up. She goes, yeah, what can you say, right?
Well, did you hear I don't know if I should go there. They made it. I don't even know how I want to say it.
Do it.
In New York, they made it okay for illegals to get driver's license.
Oh yeah. Well, can't they do that in Oregon now?
And vote and how can
non-citizens can vote? That makes absolutely no sense. I don't care what side of the political arena you're on, right or left or everything in between. It makes no sense from any direction.
Right.
No sense.
Well, we'll see what happens. There's some, if you believe in like predictions or prophecies at all,
right.
that this situation that's going on right now with the immigration was predicted and will lead us, if it's not corrected, will lead us into another civil war.
I think ye may be correct. Yeah, so
time to stock up on provisions.
So listen, if you want a straw,
if you know what I mean,
it's time to stock up on your straws. If you're a cocaine addict and you go to your dealer's house, he cannot offer you a straw. You have to ask him for one.
So, and the deal with I heard about this for like fast food restaurants. So they, like the soda machine that's in the lobby. Or
that you serve yourself with. Yeah.
So they can't put straws out there in the lobby any longer,
really?
unless there is no more room under the counter.
Really?
Yeah. You can get they will give you a straw if you go through the drive-thru.
Okay.
But otherwise you have to ask for one when you order your meal.
Is this all because of the video of the turtle that got the straw stuck in its nose?
They can make products that are biodegradable.
Right.
There's restaurants out there that have them, biodegradable cups and straws and
sure.
So I don't know why they don't just go that route.
Well, they tried the paper straw thing, which are, by the way, are disgusting. Have you ever drank out of a paper straw?
I'm sure I have.
It is weird. You know how paper will start to beat up, kind of, and as soon as it gets wet, that's what happens to them, and they're just gross.
Well, there's a particular coffee shop that when I buy coffee, I get a straw.
Yeah.
And they said don't use the straw if it's a hot drink because the straw will melt. So that just that's basically tells me that it's biodegradable.
Okay.
And so I don't know why we don't just go that direction.
I use the little stir sticks and I sip my coffee out of those.
Yeah.
Because those are meant to be hot.
Yeah, but those are plastic, so those will probably be outlawed too.
Right.
I mean, it's just, I don't know. There's lots of things that we can do to, improve our environment. You get me going on this trail that, there's so many things that we could be doing a lot better, but the powers that be will not allow it because there's too much money involved. It's all about greed and control and power. So there's my wine.
There you go. Gee.
Turn in next week for Conspiracy Hour.
I know, right?
Is it a conspiracy if it's true?
Okie dokie pokey, now it's time for a little
Yes,
win.
it is.
Something positive from the Monty Man for once.
Okay, we got to see something positive. So I'm happy to report that, and I'm excited about it. It hasn't happened yet, but this weekend I'm taking my nieces. That just sounds cool. My nieces.
It's all about you.
Yes, I'm taking my nieces to go see The Lion King.
Nice.
That's going to be fun. Yeah, I think that's a win. I love that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
You know, what do they call that special effect where everything looks real? There's a name for it. Reality TV.
CGI.
CGI. Yeah. So that's going to be fun. And I was able to go up to Sweet Home the other day and actually fix Marv's mixer. His mixing board wasn't operating properly, or the speakers. It was a matter of a little switch in the back.
It usually is.
It wasn't because I was so smart.
Called, is the power on?
Yeah.
Is it plugged in?
All right, so we're going to take a break, and we'll come back, and we're going to talk about this topic, Big Boys Do Cry, emotional recovery, when we return. Don't go away. Hey, it's Monty Meyer here with the Willamette Valley campus of Adult and Teen Challenge with a special invitation for men who don't shy away from a challenge. It's Rough Cut Men, the movie experience. Friday, August 2nd from 6 to 9 p.m. and Saturday, August 3rd from 8 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. at Willamette Community Church in Albany, Oregon. Here's David Dusek from Rough Cut Men Ministries.
We're really good at faking it. And I'm absolutely tired of watching men fake their way through life. Because it's not a matter of if things are going to go wrong, it's a matter of when. And it's who we have on our six, on our back, making sure that we survive. That's the most important thing we can have. It's not about Bible studies, it's not about Sunday morning. It is about 2 or 3 men around us who can bring us off the battlefield when we're wounded in life.
What you will experience through Hollywood action movies, current events, biblical truth, and personal testimony is that you will come away realizing that rough cut men are not the finished product, but a work in progress by God. Only $29 covers the cost of both days, and proceeds benefit Willamette Valley Adult and Teen Challenge. For more information, call 541-491-1002 or email troy.cunningham@teenchallengepnw.com. To find out more about Rough Cut Men Ministries, visit roughcutmen.org.
There I was in my business suit, all dressed up, just uptight as I could possibly be. And I don't remember much of what was said at that first AA meeting. It was more the feeling of the meeting itself.
That's what has kept me going. I know it works, and I see the people ahead of me with more sobriety. I see how happy they are, and I want that. I want that too.
And what I notice about AA is it sort of helps me to relax and learn to really be happy with my sobriety. It's a richer life to live.
That's exactly what Alcoholics Anonymous does. It teaches us how to live without drinking. It teaches us how to have fun and really enjoy life without drinking.
This program's given me the good life. The only good life I've ever known.
Alcoholics Anonymous. It works. Look us up. Check your phone book, newspaper, or AA.org.
This is Chris Schroeder. You are listening to Take12Radio.com. Recovery talk and positive music.
Okie dokie pokey. We are back.
Gumby and Pokey?
Gumby and Pokey. Now, we are
talking about old shows.
Right? We are dating ourselves now. Hey, Pokey. Hey, Gumby. Did you have a Pokey and Gumby toy?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But the Gumby one doesn't stretch, kind of like Stretch Armstrong stretches.
No, it had wires inside of it,
Right.
so you could bend its...
Right. I tried to stretch it like a Stretch Armstrong, and it didn't work. I took its leg off.
Wow.
And I cried.
Have you had some counseling for that yet?
Well, I did cry because my Gumby broke. I think I was probably about 27.
Sounds about right.
So do big boys cry? I guess there was a song years ago. Oh, now I can't remember. I told Lynette Sutton the other day who it was. It was a song called Big Girls Don't Cry. He's Googling it now. It wasn't the Supreme. Four Seasons. I think it was the Four Seasons. It wasn't written by the Four Seasons. It was performed by the Four Seasons.
What was it called?
Big Girls Don't Cry. But the topic for this show is big boys do cry. And living really in emotional recovery. Is it okay to be emotional in your recovery? Or do we, especially as men, do we just press through and not want to show our emotions and kind of... Did you find it?
There's actually quite a few here.
Really?
We've got Fergie, Big Girls Don't Cry, Sigh, whoever that is, Big Girls Cry, and Frankie Valley.
Frankie Valley, that's the one I'm thinking of. Yeah.
Big Girls Don't Cry.
Yeah, there you go. Well, but do big boys cry? Yeah, they do. But maybe we don't cry enough. I don't know. What do you think, Dave? I mean, especially, let's talk about men particularly here, because we've got this image, and it's been going on since the dawn of time, right?
Yeah, and I think one of the biggest complaints or concerns is that, it asks, well, why don't we show emotions?
Yeah.
Right? Because that's kind of on the other side of it in recovery. I know personally, my wife's even asked me, like, you don't, like, show any, like, emotions, like, one way or another, but then there'll be a movie on TV and I'll start crying,
Right.
Some sappy movie on TV.
I'm a sucker for those too. Right? Yeah.
Or music, right? So, like, even like American Idol or The Voice and places like that, someone will be out there singing, and it'll be like this emotional,
really touches your heartstrings.
Yeah, and it'll be like, start hold it back, eyes start watering. But I believe it. I don't buy into that, that mention cry, shouldn't show emotion.
Yeah.
I know for, probably eons that's been the thing, is like,
suck it up,
be a man.
Yeah.
What the heck does that mean?
Right.
So being a man means that you don't cry. It's, I believe it's all taken out of context, because in certain situations, you probably don't want to cry.
Never let him see you sweat, Dave.
Right. But in other situations, it's appropriate.
So do you think, you work in the field, especially with people you work with, do you hear, I know I hear this, I was raised, I heard people say I was raised in a home where my dad would tell me, now don't you cry, don't you do it.
I'll give you something to cry about.
I'll give you something to cry about. Man up, man. Yeah. And if we're taught that, then we're also being taught to shove down and repress anything that would normally be healthy, just to kind of let it bubble out and get rid of it.
I know that. I heard that when I was a kid. If you're going to cry, I'll give you something to cry about.
Yeah.
What about you?
Yeah, my grandpa.
Yeah.
On my dad's side was like that. My mom and dad weren't. But we'd go see my grandpa. He lived in Stockton. We lived in Petaluma. And about once a month, we'd go over and see my grandpa. And if mom got after me, I mean, I'm just a little kid.
Right.
And grandma and grandpa, they got antiques everywhere and hundreds of chihuahuas and birds and clocks. It's like an amusement park for me.
Plastic on the furniture.
Right. Exactly. Plastic on the lampshades. Right. So I was touching stuff, and mom would correct me, and before I even had a chance to even react one way or another, my grandfather would pipe up and say, "Now don't you disrespect your mother, don't you cry." And I'm like, I'm not even feeling like crying. Why? But he was really quick to do that.
Right.
Yeah.
My grandfather was more of a quiet guy, and if you stuck your I think I've told you this before. If you stuck your elbows on the table, like at dinner,
right,
he would jab you with a fork.
Really?
And I don't remember this ever happening to me, but I remember that.
Right.
My mom telling me that story. So it's like, I think I've always, like, even when I'm, not around my grandfather,
Right.
I still try to, like, keep my elbows off the table because that's just proper manners.
Is that a repressed memory, Dave?
I guess, but yeah, I also grew up with the, what is it? The children should be seen and not heard.
And not heard thing. Yeah. Did you during the holidays, did the kids sit at a separate table like at Thanksgiving or?
Yeah, we used to. Yeah, back when my Uncle Charlie was alive, we used to go over there for holidays, and that was, the kids had their own table, and the adults had their own table. And I mean, that's kind of how it was. And I've even been to other people's houses for holidays, and that's kind of what they do too.
So I noticed that, like in our family, we had growing up. I didn't have brothers and sisters, but both my folks did. And both families would come together and it'd be huge.
Right.
Especially at Thanksgiving. And one uncle had a yard that was gigantic. It was really long. So they'd play football out there and everything. But the kids were set at a separate table, not because they were trying to keep them away from the adult conversations, but because the kids wanted to be with each other. All the cousins, they didn't get to see each other that often. We had a good time with each other. But I've been to some people's homes where it's like, no, we're having adult conversation, so we don't want you here. You go sit over there. And then the adults would act like idiots. And I'm like, the kids have more maturity than the adults do.
Right.
I've witnessed that too. But there's a lot of foundational behaviors that's being really built upon when we're younger around how we respond emotionally that we learn. Right. And then instead of displaying our emotions or being honest about how we're feeling, we'll use.
Right.
And we know that a lot of times the reason we medicate is to numb how we feel. And so I found in the people that I've sponsored over the years, many times, that was one of the big reasons that they would medicate, was because they did not want to let anybody know how emotional they were. And I think emotional recovery is healthy to a degree.
Right. Well, I believe that has been a part of our societal problems, is that people don't know even what that is. Like, what is it proper, what is a healthy emotions? What is it okay and not okay? And, you know what I mean?
Right.
It's like, nobody in my family ever talked about things like this. I don't know about yours, but even like, dating, and I mean, my family never talked about these things. It was like
they just happened.
Just happened. Yeah, it was like on the job training.
Right. Nobody sat you down and say, "Okay, we're going to talk about this." When my father passed away, it was really interesting. My father had peripheral T-cell lymphoma. And so he was sick for a long time, right? And when he finally passed away and they were in their apartment, my mom called me. It was about 5 a.m. in the morning and said, "Dad's gone." I said, "Okay, I'll be right over." And I went over there. Of course, the coroner's coming, and that's pretty rough to see your paw getting bagged up in a vinyl bag and zipped up and hauled off on a gurney.
Right.
And my mom turned over to me and said, "Now, don't you cry." Because she knew that if I did, she was going to lose it.
Yeah.
Right? I kick myself now because I held it together. But you know what? I kind of wished I wouldn't have.
I think our brain protects itself too in certain circumstances. When my dad passed, I was kind of the same way. The circumstances around that, how I found out weren't the best. And so I was called to the hospital because I was the oldest living, family member.
Right.
And I was basically the one that had to sign the paperwork to unplug him from the machine.
Wow.
And you know, it was just this weird, it was bizarre because I hadn't seen my dad since my dad left when I was 5 or somewhere around there.
Yeah.
And I didn't see him again until I was like 37. Yeah, somewhere around there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's like this, it was weird because it's like this person was not in my life and now he's in my life and now he's dead. And so it was, I walked around probably for a few weeks just totally numb, and then I just lost it. You know, I started crying and couldn't stop, and I was basically in bed for a week.
Mm-hmm.
It was a really tough time, you know, because part of me was, you know, upset that he was gone, but the other part of me was like, you know, I was in the middle of my addiction. And so then I was kicking myself because I was like, you know, he was only in my life for a short period of time. And here I'm spending most of that in, you know, getting high or drunk.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I've had to deal with that, you know, over the years, but,
does that come back to you sometimes? The remorse from that?
No, what comes back is just, you know, not just missing the times. You know, we did spend some time together.
Yeah.
Not, you know, just missing the ability to, you know, to do those things or have him, you know, see what I'm doing with my life, you know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, I've changed my view on life. I believe that everything that's happened has been to make me the person that I am today.
Yeah, I would agree
so
with that.
I don't have any, you know, regrets or, you know, guilt or shame about anything in the past because, I mean, it's in the past. I can't do anything about changing it. All I can do is change things moving forward.
And you could be grateful for the uncomfortable times as well as the successful times. And that my mom used to be very concerned about me because she would say, you take things so hard, you know, and I thought that she was exaggerating, but I look back at my life and there was a time in my life, we've talked about this before, where I was very emotionally dependent and I had abandonment issues that I had no idea that I had that very possibly stemmed from being given up for adoption at about 3 years of age. I don't know. But I was very emotionally dependent on other people to be okay with myself.
Right.
And so when I would lose somebody, whether they moved away and it was a healthy separation, they just moved because maybe their parents got another job somewhere, or somebody moved on and it was a good thing for them. You know, it would crush me. It would crush me.
Yeah.
Something happened in my 12-step work. I cannot pinpoint it, where God did a healing in me in that area, and things do not affect me like that anymore. I've had some people tell me, wow, you're just cold and callous now. And I'm like, no, I think what happened was I grew up a little bit.
Yeah, you can't please everyone.
No. But I can still cry at the drop of a hat if the moment is correct, and I don't apologize for it.
Right.
We'll be watching a movie, and if the kids are over and they're married and grown, but if they're over with their spouses or whatever, and it gets to an emotional part, they'll all lean over and look to see if dad's crying. And I'll go, stop it, leave me alone. I mean, for crying out loud, I went and saw Toy Story 4, right? The last 30 minutes, Buzz and Woody are basically going separate ways, and I'm not doing well. And my wife's like, they're puppets.
Right.
But what it does is it touches something in you
right.
that is a good thing. I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, I've gone through, I guess some similar things, not from the, being adopted thing, but, my dad left, right? And then we moved around, I don't know how many times, probably 4 or 5 times. I can't even, remember. all I can remember is 5 or 6 different schools.
Yeah.
From the time I was, I don't know, 10 to, high school.
Oh, that's a lot.
And so I developed a pretty thick skin,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't
make close friends.
There was a few people along the way that I'm still friends with today.
Yeah.
But they're, few and far between. I never, there's a few people that I opened up to, but
yeah,
for the most part, it was just, you build up these walls, you build up this, these areas of your life that you don't want to let people in because you just assume that they're only going to be in your life for a short period of time and then they're going to be gone. And then you'll just have to, so I always got good at like the first impression thing,
right.
The initial meeting and the, get to know each other. But, past, a few weeks got a little awkward.
Yeah.
Because, it was a little bit of work trying to do that. It's interesting because as I'm talking, I'm also thinking about the fact that I started writing my book and I started writing about these things. So it's kind of interesting that, we're talking about this, but it served me well, I guess in the period of time when I was in my addiction and, that whole, the lifestyle music business and all that, I developed that thick skin ahead of time so that I was already like almost like I was preparing myself in a weird way.
Yeah.
I believe that, like I said, I've said before, is like my whole life has kind of led me to this point where I'm at now.
Sure.
And so certain things had to happen in order for that to be the way it is now.
I was such.
If that makes any sense.
It does. And I've lost some friends that I put those demands on them. You're going to be my best friend, or I'm going to, develop or produce a bad Lifetime movie, and I'm coming after you with a knife. I'm
going to get a radio station, and I'm going to talk about you.
Right. But no, I mean, I was so emotionally dependent on people being my friend that I ended up pushing people away. One guy, 25 years we were friends. Well, he was my friend. Let's put it that way. He tolerated me. I look back at it now and I'm like, I totally get it. I would have ran away from me, man. This poor guy following around like a puppy dog. It was horrible. It was pathetic. But again, like you were saying, those experiences led to where I'm at today, and I stand back and I look and I go, I don't even know if I recognize that part of me, but it was a part of me. And I'm thankful that it was.
Right.
When our first dog passed away, Sakima, I think I was a blubbering idiot, probably 100 times worse than when my mom died. Things like that. So let's talk about for a minute. What about people that, we've been talking about people that those of us that aren't afraid to show our emotions as guys. What about guys who really insist on shoving that stuff down and I'm just not going to go there? It doesn't do well for them, does it? I mean, not in the long run.
No. That's just, you're just, like you said, stuffing that down. And it usually ends up turning into something else and coming out sideways somewhere.
Like in anger or wrath? Or...
A lot of times it's anger. And I could look at like my own recovery. When I was in my addiction, I had before my addiction, I had a lot of anger in that the whole abandonment and all that other stuff piled on top of each other, and I stuffed it down. Didn't ever tell anybody about anything. So when I would drink, all the filters would get turned off, so it would come out that way. And so, oftentimes that you will discover exactly what your character defects are when you're under the influence of chemicals.
Yeah.
And so, and I'm speaking from the position of recovery. So once you get into recovery, you need to address those issues, because otherwise, if we just continue to stuff them down, they're going to come out sideways when we're sober, and then it might be in the form of not committing to a relationship, not sticking in a job. Like, you know, you're in a job, and as soon as things don't go well, you're out the door to the next job. Because you don't want to deal with conflict, which brings emotions, which you know how that goes.
Yeah.
And then if there's abandonment issues and there's trust issues on top of that, getting into a relationship is going to be tricky as well, because we all know how it goes, right? The chase and the initial, like, get to know you, right, is usually, you know, pretty good. But after the news worn off,
the honeymoon's over.
The honeymoon is over, figuratively and sometimes literally. You have to look at, like, the choices that you made, and then you have to deal with that. So we need to look at what our issues are, and if it has to do with our emotions or lack thereof, we should figure out what's going on with us.
Because recovery is emotional, whether you're trying to stuff it, hide it, or you're good at going ahead and being real and everything in between. It doesn't change the fact that recovery is emotional.
Well, and some people have trouble identifying what emotions they're actually feeling, or going through, or lacking.
I don't know why I'm crying. I don't know why I'm depressed. I haven't got a clue.
Or why I don't have emotions.
Right. I'm just deadpan.
A lot of people in early recovery, either they're one way or the other, right? They're either like crying at everything,
right,
or they're like,
stoic,
flatline.
Yeah.
Not dead, just emotionally. There's no ups or downs. They're just, just existing.
And they don't even know why. Sometimes.
Right.
They haven't got a clue.
Well, it's, we can guess, but
yeah,
again, it's each individual's.
Sure. There's two. Go ahead.
I see you got that.
12 Stupid Things. Yeah.
12 Stupid Things.
So our friend Dr. Berger wrote a book. It's one of the bestsellers published by the Hazelton Foundation called 12 Stupid Things That Mess Up Recovery. And there's two people in here I want to talk about briefly. In Stupid Thing number 9, playing futile self-improvement games. This one person is called Spiritual Sally. Spiritual Sally avoids life by hiding behind her commitment to living a spiritual life. Whenever Sally runs into difficulty in a relationship or emotions, she hides behind her spirituality by becoming ultra righteous. So she won't show her emotions.
Interesting. She
won't show that she has any kind of vulnerability, right? Because she is so spiritual. And I've met people like that. Well, my relationship with my higher power, or my relationship with the Lord, or whatever, is at a place where things just don't affect me like they used to, and I don't need to be emotional. I'm well balanced. Well, that's kind of a
someone
contradiction.
That's talking like that obviously has an issue.
They've got
right
emotional.
I don't need to show emotions. Well, obviously you have an issue.
And these
with
are
emotions.
the same people that will say things like, "I don't care what other people think about me." And I'm like, I don't believe that for 1 minute.
Right. That was me.
Was it really?
Yep.
Yeah. I don't care what other people think. Oh, come on.
I don't care what people think. I don't care what people say, because you know what? You're not going to help me. You're not going to make things better for me. I mean, that was kind of my, because everybody is out for themselves.
Right.
Dog eat dog. Right. That's the way our society is. It's like individuality.
Which is a truth.
Right. And so I know that I can only depend on myself. So
I don't care about what you think.
Well, yeah, but I learned later on that wasn't true.
Right. Because we do care.
Right.
Right. We would hardly be human if we didn't.
And when I got into recovery, it was one of those things, because, every once in a while, I don't know if you experience this, but every once in a while I'd have the boss or somebody pat you on the back and say, you're doing a good job. And I'm like, that feels really good.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so when I got into the rooms, and I would have to say NA specifically, when I walked in there and people were like, welcome, give you a hug. Yes. Like, you don't even know me.
Right.
And say, welcome, we're glad you're here. And then when when I remember getting my, my key tags or my chips, it's like people would come up that I don't ever even talk to and be like, thank you. You don't know how much you've helped me. And then they'd rattle off something that I said that I don't remember.
Right.
And how it changed their life. And it'd be like, thank you very much. I really appreciate you. And it's like, man, this is, and give you a hug. It's like, man, this is what I've been missing.
So were
Right?
you ever suspicious? Were you ever suspicious of that in the beginning? Because some people will say that. They'll say, I don't know.
Yeah, and I think it was just more in jest than anything else. But I remember walking into this. I share this every once in a while. I walk into this meeting and this big guy, and I forget his name, big biker guy, in his leathers and is probably 6'8", 350 pounds, and walk in, and I think I reached out to shake his hand, and he batted it away, and he gave me a hug and said, "Welcome, I'm glad you're here."
I've had that happen.
And I was like, "What did I just walk into?"
Right.
Because he was like cheery and just a little too affectionate for me at the time.
Right.
But it, as time went on, and I'd been in recovery for a while, but as time went on, I'm like, and then I was like, man, this is what I've been missing. I've been missing that someone giving you a hug and saying, you know what, you matter, you mean something,
right.
You're valuable,
right.
We appreciate you. And I'm like, man, I'm sold.
Yeah.
If I can come in here and get this every week or 5 days a week,
Let me ask you about something that is a common practice in many circles within support groups, whether it's a small group or like a 12-step support meeting that I've heard. I know you've heard this because of the field you're in and your certification and licensing. Don't put Kleenex boxes out on the table and make them available for people who are going through emotions. Because if you do that, well, there's a number of reasons. And one of them, I think, is because, well, you're telling people that because you feel uncomfortable if they're crying and snot's coming out of their nose, right? So you give them a Kleenex because you feel uncomfortable. I don't know if that's true or not. What's the science behind that, or is there any?
I don't know. I haven't really looked into it that deeply. I know we were just talking about this the other day at work, actually. I don't have any Kleenex boxes in my office.
Because you're poor?
And no, it's I don't know why. It's one of those things, and even when, I mean, there comes a point where you want to go out and get them a Kleenex or whatever, but I let them sit in there. If they get to the point where they're gonna cry,
yeah,
I might have some in my drawer or something, but
right.
You kind of know that they're actually really doing some good work if they're showing emotion in the session, and it's benefit. They try to validate that they're actually showing these emotions and that and talk about what they're going through, because it's important to feel those emotions when they come up and start repression. I've also been with people that they hold it back. You can tell their eyes are all starting to get red and they're watering,
but
and
they just don't cross the line.
They're just like, I feel like crying. I'm like, well, go ahead.
Yeah, might be the best thing you do all day.
Holding it back,
right?
A lot of people.
If snot is just dripping out of your nose and you're gasping for air, though, I'm giving you a Kleenex, man.
Right. Yeah. You've really you've had a good day when your clients are crying.
That's interesting because Brandon T, Brandon.
Yeah.
When he was first a student at Adult and Teen Challenge, I mean, he was there about a month, and he got to serve divorce papers, right? And I was his counselor,
right?
And he tells me, he goes, "You know what I used to hate? You say that to me all the time. Well, praise God, you get to feel sober." Because I hated that. I get it now, but I hated it. And so every time somebody comes to my office and they leave and they're in tears because we've had a breakthrough, somebody goes, "Monty, you make everybody cry." And I'm not sure quite how to take that. Here's another guy in the book, 12 Stupid Things. His name is Self-Effacing Sam. Now, this guy's interesting because this goes the other way too far. Sam's game is always to be wrong. Sam lives his life constantly apologizing for his existence, regardless of whether he has done something wrong or not. Wow. No matter the discussion, Sam is always finding fault with himself. He is always wrong, inadequate, or incapable. Sam's incredibly emotional. Sam's ploy is to manipulate others into telling him what a wonderful person he truly is by telling everyone what a loser or incompetent person he thinks he is. This kind of game makes it difficult for anybody to be truly angry with Sam. How could you be upset with someone who is constantly putting himself down? This is one of the benefits of the game that Sam is playing. It keeps people from being upset with him because, after all, who can kick a good man while he's down?
Well,
I know people like this.
The first thing, so do I. The first thing that popped in my head is, pour me another one.
Pour me another drink, yeah.
But the thing is people like that usually don't have a whole lot of friends or even people that want to be around.
Nobody wants to be around somebody like that.
Because of that, yeah.
Yeah.
Or you get the other side of that same person that is basically in denial because they're telling everybody how great they are and what good things that they do.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
We know a couple of those too, right?
They sure do.
And they're always constantly telling everyone, especially their family, on the phone or whatever, this is what I'm doing today. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And reality is they're like totally lost. They're like, I have no clue and I don't know who I am or what my life is, how my life has gotten to this point. But if I tell everybody how good I'm doing, that they'll start to trust me again or start to believe me. And it's like, it has the opposite effect. It's like, you need to stop.
Yeah, because they've heard it a million times before.
It's like, why don't you ask about me?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
How are you doing? Not, I'm doing great, right? Ask the other person that you're talking to.
Yeah.
How are you doing?
The poor wife that's raising the kids while you're in treatment. How about asking your wife how she's doing today?
Right.
How are the kids doing? I mean, can I pray for you instead of I need you to pray for me? And that kind of speaks to the whole concept of the 12 step, right? Serving other people, get out of yourself and offer some assistance. But these two people, the guy that's always bragging on himself, are this self-defeating guy.
Same person.
It's the same person, and it's all manipulation.
Right.
Yeah.
And some of it's just denial. I mean, there's this, and I don't know. I'm thinking about one particular person right now, but they're in so much denial that they think that if they talk about how good they're doing it, the other stuff doesn't exist.
Right. Or if they talk about how horrible they are, people will never correct them. People will never confront them.
Well, what happens is you get people, depending on where you're at, and giving them compliments. But after a while, it gets old because you keep giving someone compliments, and they keep saying, "No, I'm not. I'm a piece of shit," or what? What
yeah,
I mean?
right,
Saying,
exactly. Yeah, you stop giving the compliments because you get tired of hearing that.
Because it's like now you're just.
So I know somebody that does this a lot, and I wanted to say to this person the last time they did this, because they're like, "You're mad at me now," and I wanted to say, "You know what? You're right. I am furious." But I didn't have the heart. I don't know. But so there is a time to actually be open and honest about your emotions. We're talking today primarily about men doing that because we seem to have a harder time with it. But it goes for both men and women, or the other 122 genders that we've developed now.
Stop. It has to be, the appropriate time and place too. I mean, sometimes it's not appropriate.
It's not appropriate to stand in front of your entire congregation and confess everything you've done the last week.
And you're the pastor.
Yeah, right. You might want to use some wisdom there.
Well, yeah. So
big boys do cry. And it's okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you're saying, no, suck it up, buttercup, then you probably have issues that are probably worse than the guy who's overly emotional. There is time to suck it up, but you got to be able to let it out.
Right.
Yeah. Closing thoughts.
Closing thoughts. It's okay to cry.
Yeah.
Actually, real men do cry.
Real men do cry. They don't just eat quiche, they do cry. That was a book, wasn't it? Real Men Eat Quiche. I want to read this. This is from my friend Rick, and this is in regards to a man who he was my sponsor for many, many years, although most people didn't even know it because he just didn't want me saying, well, my sponsor this and my sponsor that, because he was very humble. But he passed away. He was also a co-host on this show for many, many years. His name was Bruce. And this is a guy, the guy that my friend Rick, who's not afraid to show his emotions. And this is what he writes about Bruce. And this is healthy emotional sharing. And I wanted to read it because it moved me emotionally in such a good way. I was so grateful for it. So if you have somebody in your life that you want to write about, that you appreciate, or tell them, even if they're no longer with us and you haven't done it, do it.
Yep.
It's really good stuff. Rick writes, I'm not sure if many of you know, but Bruce and I used to do big book studies at my home. After everyone would leave, Bruce would stay and share his joy and passion for the Lord. After he left, I would sit in the dark, my head spinning around and around. There is a quote by John Wooden that I believe exemplifies Bruce. Quote, be more concerned with your character than your reputation. Your character is what you really are, while your reputation is merely what others think you are. End quote. My friend had an abundance of character. His genuine concern for others was unconditional. He wanted people to grab a hold of what he had experienced. His reputation was perceived by many as radical in his beliefs. But those who loved him knew he was passionate, which in turn enhanced his character. He shared many things with me, but I could never repay him for the wisdom, compassion, and love he showed me when I shared my feelings, worries, disappointments, or happiness with him. His sense of humor and laugh was infectious. I knew that he loved Teresa, which is Rick's wife, and I with his entire being. Every time he and I would part ways, he would be sure to tell me, give Teresa a hug. I remember when Bruce went into the hospital for his gallbladder operation and slipped into a coma. I was in California for my son Chris's wedding and felt totally helpless. A godly brother of mine, Steve S., helped me get through not being there. When Steve heard that Bruce had pulled through with the help of many prayers by people here today, he told me he envied me. I asked him why he envied me. Knowing my past, Steve told me that not only am I a miracle, I had witnessed a miracle with Bruce's recovery. Today, I know that I have experienced another miracle, the miracle of courage. We are fear-based people, and Bruce's courage to not live artificially, but to give his body wholly to God, inspires me. He told me he was tired, and not only was he ready, he was excited to meet his Heavenly Father. I hope that I will have that same courage. I want to quote from a book titled Sources of Strength. If we strive, whether persistently or only intermittently, to serve Christ, there are many things that need not worry us. We don't have to worry about how wise or clever we are. God chose the foolish. We don't have to worry about how powerful we are. God chose the weak. We don't have to worry about how popular we are. God chose the despised. None of these measurements count when it comes to performing great acts of life. Great acts as defined by God are acts of humility, obedience, and love. Bruce had these qualities in spades and tried to practice those acts in the lives of others. When I would be down, Bruce would always say, "Brother, God rejoices in your suffering." He would then laugh that maniacal laugh and say, "How messed up is that?" Followed by, "Keep the faith, brother." I have done that, kept the faith that is messed up just enough to continue to seek. I believe God rejoices in how Bruce touched so many lives and how he is going home as a servant of God. So, reputation? It is simply what others think of you. Bruce was not concerned about his reputation. Character? Ah, yes. Character is a behavior, and it is an inside job. It is who we are, our hearts on display for God. That was how Bruce lived. The proof? He was so ready to meet his Maker. I am telling you, when you can write something like that about somebody, you are in touch with your feelings.
Yeah.
That's good stuff, man.
That's good stuff.
That's good stuff. I read that and got through it okay. When I read it to my wife, I did not get through it okay. I had no problem tearing up because Bruce was that to me and many others. So if you have somebody that you need to get real with and you need to maybe shed a tear in front of, don't be afraid to do that.
Right. Everyone needs somebody.
Yep.
And if you're struggling, this came into my head while you were reading that too, and you asked about final thoughts, is we also got to be careful on who we let into our lives.
We do.
As men, it seems like as I've talked to many over the years, they always seem to be focused on like meeting that woman, meeting the right woman, or
the number one, my number one.
And so, and be careful with the emotions on that. You don't want to be overly, and you don't want to, meet somebody that struggles with their emotions as well.
Yeah.
Thinking, well, they don't show their emotions, so I'm good because I have trouble showing mine. So
there
might be some red flags there.
Well, I'd like to dedicate our closing song to my wife, Marcia, and because I don't say this enough to her, but I really want to thank her for just being who she is. This is a song by Michael Brown called "Thank You for Being You" by Mr. Michael Brown.
Thank you for being you, for all of the things that you do, and all of the times that you've seen me through. I thank you for being you, for making me laugh when I'm sad, for all of the good times we have, for all of the nights and mornings too. I thank you for being you. 'Cause in a world of people who aren't what they seem, I need you by my side, making it real and telling it true. I thank you for being you. Thank you for being you. Thank you for loving me, for all that you helped me to see, for not taking less than the best I can be. I thank you for loving me. 'Cause in a world of people who aren't what they seem, I need you by my side. Taking a dream and making it true. I thank you for being you. Thank you for being you. Thank you for being you.
Mr. Michael Brown. Visit his website at MikeBrownMusic.com. Hey, listen, if you'd like to download our app and take us on the go, visit us at Podomatic. Simply go to Take12Radio.com and click on the Podomatic app. You can also get us on iHeart Radio and iTunes, as well as other social media and podcasting platforms. Simply search for Take 12 Recovery Radio. Until our next broadcast, this is the Monty Man, and we are wishing God's perfect serenity for you. Bye-bye now.
Good guys, bad boys, we're all the same. Saved by grace is the name of the game. Turn around, hit the ground, time to lay a burden down.
This has been a broadcast of KHLT Recovery Broadcasting.
'Cause she's a super cat, she's super kitty, meow.
Yeah, kitty, 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 kitty.